Commentaries from the Heart with Father Anthony Agnes. Today is the memorial of the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Readings. First reading, 2 Corinthians chapter 5, 14 to 21. There's also the option for Isaiah chapter 61, 9 to 11. And then the Gospel reading, Luke chapter 2, 41 to 51. Friends, today, Saturday, a day after we have celebrated the Sacred Heart of Jesus, the Church wants us to also reflect on the Immaculate Heart of Mary. The two hearts that are always together. They are always found together. And that's why we have the pictures, if you have seen any images of the heart of Jesus and that of Mary together in that beautiful portrait that we find almost everywhere these days. The first time these hearts were together was in the womb of Mary when she conceived Jesus. Because for 9 months, Jesus was in her womb. They were together from the beginning. And interestingly enough, to the end, on the cross, we hear in the Gospel of John that she was still there. Mary was there at the first day of the life of Jesus. She was there on the last day of the life of Jesus on earth. For this reason, the heart of Jesus and the heart of Mary are always found together. Because in reality, they were together from the beginning to the end. So that is why just a day after we have celebrated the heart of Jesus, we now turn to the heart of Mary. Always together, always together. And this is not the first thing. It's not an isolated case. In the liturgical tradition of the Catholic Church, whenever we celebrate a great feast, the day after that celebration, whoever was an instrument through which that celebration occurred is also honored. A particular example is, we know St. Augustine, the feast of St. Augustine. We celebrate him, and then the next day we celebrate his mother, because his mother, Monica, was the instrument through which he, Augustine, became a Christian, a believer, and a saint. There are such examples in our liturgy, that we celebrate a person who played some role in the life of that great celebration that happened before. And since Mary played a role in the life of Jesus, whose heart we celebrated yesterday, Friday, obviously, liturgically, today we turn to someone who played a role, Mary, in making that of Jesus on the cross, opening his heart for us, to die for us. She was the one who gave Jesus his DNA. Because we know Jesus didn't have an earthly father, a biological father. So the DNA of Jesus was the DNA of Mary. If you look at his fingerprints, his nail prints, his whatever feature Jesus had, they were just like that, those of him and his mother, Mary. And the word immaculate, interesting. Immaculate, from the Latin, maculata, spot, sin. Immaculata, not sin, without sin. Spotless. When you say somebody is immaculate, you are saying a person is splendid, or sometimes it looks perfect, because Mary's heart is sinless, spotless, immaculata, without spot, without sin. It's so pure. Her heart is so pure, so radiant. It is this heart that she taught Jesus how to live as a child when he was growing up. And he became, when he was of old age, gave this same love to the world. Our readings from Paul, the first reading, just a line because I want to concentrate on the gospel. Paul says, look, the love that we have today, everything we had is from God. And so we should be reconciled to him. Obviously, if you have been listening to the readings from Monday from 2 Corinthians, we know that Paul was having some arguments with some people who didn't like him. And so today, Paul concludes the argument. Okay, it's time for reconciliation. You forget about the past. Forget about the disagreement we have together or we are having. And let's reconcile. So today, Paul closes the docket, on this argument with those who didn't like him in the church in Corinth. This is the Christian calling. Whenever we have disagreements, you and your husband, you and your wife, your friend, your children, your parents, your colleague, sometimes just throw in the towel, they say. There's no need to keep on arguing. So Paul says, look, let us be reconciled to God, because God has reconciled us himself by sending his son to die for us. Christ dying for us, he has reconciled us. He has reconciled us. And so that is what we should all do. That at the end of our lives, at the end of the day, when we go through the day and realize that somebody has done something, there's something that we didn't do well, go back, send a text message, a call, and reconcile. I'm sorry. Let's forget about what happened before and move forward. Beautiful from Paul for the first reading. And this is what the Mass is. He says that it's all the work of God. Reconciliation is the work of God. And this is what the Mass is, the one we celebrate. Because it is Jesus who offers himself to God for us at the Mass. As we say, he paid the debt he did not owe. We owe the debt we could not pay. At every Mass, Jesus is paying the debt that we could not pay, but we owed. It's a way Jesus gives himself to us by paying the debt that he did not owe, but was owed by us. Thank God for this grace exchange, that he gives himself to us, and then we also become like him. The Gospel reading from Luke chapter 2, 41 to 5, we say the find of Jesus in the temple. Interestingly enough, we don't hear the gospel writer saying Jesus was missing. Of course, today we say Jesus was missing and was found. The Bible only said he stayed behind. Jesus stayed behind. Obviously, God cannot be missing. If we don't find God in our lives, we don't find Jesus in our lives, it's not because he's missing, but we are rather missing from him. We have moved from him. He's always there. And where do we find Jesus? For us Catholics, he was found in a temple. Go to any Catholic church we have. He's always there. He's always staying there behind in the tabernacles of the churches. Jesus is always found in the temple, found in the tabernacle, always there. Do you feel that you are lost? Do you feel that Jesus is missing from your life? Maybe like you, like Mary and Joseph, it's time to go back and find him in the temple, in the tabernacle, and offer him yourself. He is there always. We know that he got missing. It says after a day's journey, or they couldn't find him after a day's journey, because that was the way the travelers made their journey. The women first took the lead because they went a bit slowly. Their pace was a bit slower, and then the men would follow after them. So Joseph thought maybe Jesus had gone with Mary's group because they were the women group. They went first, and Mary also thought that okay, maybe Jesus would come with the father's group, the second group. So it's not because Mary and Joseph were careless, never, but because the arrangement for their journey. So when at the end of the day, getting to the sunset, when then they pause for the journey, then the two groups come together. It is then that they realize that Jesus was not around. Because Mary thought he was with the father's group, and Joseph thought he was with the mother's group, the women's group. So they had to go back to look for him. But they found him. Why do we hear this in the gospel that Jesus got missing? As I say, we say he's missing. The Bible says he stayed behind in a way. Because there's an important lesson for us. You see, Christians, Catholics, sometimes we take it for granted that Jesus is in our caravan, is in our traveling company. We take it for granted. So Mary and Joseph had to go back. Today, we are being reminded not to take it for granted that Jesus is there. Because sometimes he's actually not there in our lives. We take for granted that he's there in our life, but we know he's not there. They paused and then went back to look for him. As we celebrate the heart of Mary today, it's also a time for us to pause and go back and see if Jesus is really there in our caravan of life, in our caravan for our journey of life. We will find him like Mary and Joseph did. We will surely find him because he is always there. But now the narrative is different. Jesus says, look, now I will go before you so that don't lose sight of me. He says, follow me, walk behind me. Now Jesus goes before us